Now, in these next clips, you're going to hear Andrew Tate and Candace in a couple different time codes that I just shot over to LD. In one of these time codes, they're going to talk about Candace hired a new person and they had gone through Tate's educational program on how to like make your offer and stuff like that, right? If you can't afford Autonomy, if you can't afford the flagship, you can afford $49 a month for whatever that course is. Because regardless of Andrew Tate as the messenger, he's teaching young men like, hey, you don't need $100,000 college education. You need to do this, this, and this, and take some fucking actions. Repeat, and learn how to self-recognize when you get something wrong and how to make it right. That's a big part of the process. Now, I'm not going to say I haven't seen his curriculum. I'm just saying it's mentioned in this clip. And if you make the excuse like you can't get into Autonomy, you can afford $49 a month for whatever the thing he's doing to learn how to tie your laces. And then if you want to get on the track and run real fast at some point, like we're here for you at getautonomy.info. But the points he makes about education is why these clips are making the show, not because I need to free like not affiliate link Hustler University and just tell you guys about it, right? I'm not interested in taking part of that $49. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do. I've never even looked at it other than hearing about it in this clip that you're going to hear. The reason that you're going to hear these two clips is the third clip that's going to play, where they start talking about Israel, Zionism, the greatest ally of America, that sort of thing, because then it cuts into the Dan Bilzerian, Patrick Bet-David fire conversation. They had a long talk, but toward the end, you're going to, this is where the clip comes from. It comes from toward the end of that convo. And you're going to see Patrick Bet-David, the most uncomfortable and maybe the least informed as you've ever seen him. And I just can't help but think that if somebody could just get the underground history of Israel-Palestine presentation to someone like PBD, then he wouldn't be intellectually short of funds when he's talking to someone like Dan in this situation. I don't know much about Dan. I've never watched any of his videos. I listened to a good bit because I respect Pat. So I was like, okay, this guy must be serious. And the dude's got a 50,000 square foot house. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? He's a poker player. He's got an interesting story. Hedonism, got through that, started being serious, which is now how he ends up on Valuetainment for this interview. His outspoken remarks brought to the audience with Parrhesia are remarkable because it shows an opinion side that never makes the light of day on any type of establishment media out there. So just for speaking Parrhesia to the situation, I thought it deserved time capsulage in this episode. So without further ado, let's go back to Candace and Andrew Tate in Romania talking about they, them, those who might be the parasitic bloodsuckers of all of our lives. Let's check it out.
Commend you on something which was so crazy. So there was this person who was doing like a bunch of digital content. I thought his content was amazing, got into touch. I mean, figured out this is like a young school kid, like basically essentially like 20 years old, like just turned 20 years old. And I'm like, dude, you're a hustler. Like where did you learn how to do all of this stuff? Like I'm going to hire you. I'm like, what school did you go to? Harvard, Columbia, Hustler University. I said, excuse me? What's Hustler? I went to Andrew Tate's school and I learned how to do all of these. I mean, this kid is going to make a killing. I mean, I'm telling you, he's going to make an absolute killing. It's like around the clock, work. Yep. Comes from the wrong side of the tracks. I figure out, hired him. One of the greatest hires that I've had, like unbelievably. And so that really, to me, also signals a lot because I talk about what is so wrong with the education system. And then you learn that these kids, this is why they hate you, these kids who just want a freaking opportunity, who will work around the clock, who just want to be able to feed their families someday, who come from the wrong side of the tracks, are jumping into, I genuinely don't even know what Hustler University is, but I know that kid is 10 times more effective than people that are coming out of with college degrees right now. As looking for somebody, he is a hustler, like literally is a hustler. Yeah. And so I want to commend you on whatever it is that you built that created this young kid who's going to absolutely crush it. And that should really signal to people that there is something so corrupt and wrong that the majority of these kids who graduate with their $100,000 degrees are going to make $35K and live a life in debt and to eventually become a slave while they laugh at people who follow Andrew Tate and go to Hustler University because they're going to take over these kids.
No, and that means a lot to me. And actually, I've been told by various people in large positions of power, and that's also one of the reasons why I was so heavily attacked, because I'm going to war against the educational system. Because the educational system, as you just highlighted, is $100,000 for a degree. It takes 4 years. It takes up all of your time. You're in massive debt. And the fact that the loans are linked only to the education shows as a scam in and of itself. You can't get that loan for anything else. You can only get it for the education because they don't want that loan to be out in the fair market.
Starting a business, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you say you can get a loan and you can get a degree or X, Y, Z, nobody will get a degree because they know it's a scam. And it suffers from double inflation. It gets more expensive every year to go to college, plus more degrees exist every year. It basically has no value whatsoever. And we started Hustlers University as a way to teach children, not even kids. It was to teach people how to make money online primarily. We have 18 modern wealth creation methods. It's $49 a month. And we decided to make it, we said, look, we're going to put it out there in the marketplace of ideas. You don't need to get a loan to come here. You can spend your $49 on pizza or you can spend it on this. We're competing with the entire world and we're very large.
I actually want to model it now because people have been saying to me, like, you should do like a seminar and stuff. And I'm like, actually, you're so right. Like, I wish I had not been a fool and taken out $100,000. I paid it back.
Yeah.
But I learned nothing.
Yeah.
I learned nothing. Everything that I actually became in life was because of the street smarts that I already had.
That's right.
And I would have rather have spent the $49 on the Hustler University program so I could learn what skill set, here's what they're using. He literally said he learned editing skills that somebody else would have paid $150K to learn.
Yeah, we're doing very well. And
so it's $49. Tell me again how it works.
So it's $49 a month. You get access to 18 modern wealth creation methods. We teach all the different things about how to make money. We also have some concentration tests in there because a lot of the people who join are quite young and they have TikTok brains. So we force them to learn how to sit down and pay attention again. And we teach 18 different ways to make money. We have different professors in there. We have live calls every day. It's now the largest online educational platform in the world. We own university.com, which they really hate. That was an $8 million domain. So we bought university.com.
No way.
Yeah, that's ours. And I've actually been told that me going to war against the educational system is one of the reasons that I got in so much trouble because now you have children who are choosing $49 a month and then starting to make contracts and make money online within a few weeks as opposed to going to get these $100,000 degrees and getting in debt. So we're doing very, very well. And I'll tell you something.
I hired someone. He even said, I graduated at the top of my Hustler University class. He was like, yeah, I was one of the best in sales. And I was just like, I think it's incredible. I love it. As someone who came with a family that could not afford a single dollar towards the education system, someone I was then forced to drop out in my senior year, who then became a slave to loans. Yeah. I really want to commend you on that because that kid is now cutting so many corners in life because of something that, the monstrous Andrew Tate,
taught him how to do. But we teach agency, and also one of the reasons why we decided to do that is I also think that it's a lot easier to resist oppression if you have the ability to make your own money. A lot of these people, once they start working corporate, they're screwed. If you work for a corporation, you're going to have to get the jab and you're going to have to wear the mask and you're going to have to go to HR meetings and you're going to have to call that he or she. So by teaching people to make their own money and have their own, or at least have their own faith in themselves that they can make their own money, it allows them to be freer in their minds. Hustlers University has been under. Truth is, you can't talk against authority at all. And to try and distract everyone and keep this bull dream of freedom alive, they're going to push freaks to the front, which is why I think that the freaks are getting more and more outlandish because people are starting to realize that the freedom isn't real and they're starting to feel the cage and close. So as people are starting to sit there and realize, wait, maybe I don't live in a free country. Maybe my government is owned. Maybe they are all homosexual pedophiles. Maybe I am paying too much taxes just to blow up children. Maybe nobody has my interests at heart. Maybe my elections aren't real. Maybe my children are being brainwashed. Maybe my streets are unsafe because they refuse to police them properly. Maybe all these drugs could be stopped. Maybe, wait. He's chopped his off.
There's a man in a dress.
It's free. Freedom. And I really think
you could never have a man wear a dress in Putin's Russia.
That's right.
I think I want to go there. Sounds like, I don't want men wearing dresses.
And that's the most crazy thing about it, is that trying to show this freedom, they're actually showing to anybody with a brain things we don't even want to see, right? You can take that away. That's fine. Take that away. Another thing about talking against government, because I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, okay, well then why are you saying America's so bad when you can't talk against government anywhere else? And I said, well, the reason for that is because if you're in Russia, you know who your boss is.
And somehow you think that writing articles in the Daily Mail calling me names, case in point, New York Times former writer Barry Weiss, Candace, it's that insane. You're like a weird loser, lesbian, can crawl in a hole. Literally, Barry Weiss could crawl in a hole and die. I could care less. And I say that knowing that there's going to be, how could you say, literally she could crawl in a hole and die. You think you have the authority, right, to tell people that I'm bat insane because I won't get in the line in the same way that you've gotten in line with the system your entire life. Yep. Like you're a Zionist, bought and paid for Zionist, and your job is to convince Americans that never-ending war while we can't afford groceries, while people can't afford to put gas into their tank, is something that they should just subject themselves to because there's some higher moral purpose that really just serves you and your superiors.
Whoa, you don't think Israel is your number one ally?
It's the dumbest thing. People just say stuff, and that's how you really know that everyone's a bot. And I say this even against, people who I've had respect for in the past. I really see it because they say stuff that doesn't even make sense. It's like 6 feet social distancing, save lives. Israel's our number one ally and friend. Why would you even make that statement? That's an objectively, on its face, stupid statement to make.
They just repeat it.
And
And you're right, they don't think about it. So let's think about it. For everyone at home, let's think about it. Someone comes up to me, Andrew Tate, Israel is your number one ally. I said, well, they never paid my rent. So they're not my ally. They don't cut my grass. Now, what do they do for me? It turns out nothing. So who are they allies to? Well, are they allies to the government who are also, it seems to be my enemy? Are they allies to the people who I don't trust? When the senators who are robbing everybody and stealing all of the money and inflating the currency stand up and say they're our number one ally, maybe they're your number one ally because you can get an Israeli passport and disappear and hide because you're a pedophile. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're your ally, but they're certainly not mine. So why is anybody even repeating this trope? Whose ally are they?
Right. I said that. They protect pedophiles. They literally...
They're allied to the criminal class.
So I'm like, where is this coming from? They also performed a terrorist attack and got away with it because of, I'm assuming, the blackmail they have on politicians. But the USS Liberty, we can't even talk about that in America. Yeah. It's like this no-go zone. You can't talk about that, or the press is going to label you an anti-Semite for knowing that they murdered and tried to get away with it by flying in planes, unmarked planes, and bombing the USS Liberty to drag us into their war with Egypt. Yeah. That's not my ally. Not from a political standpoint, not from a personal standpoint. The second your state is protecting pedophiles and allowing them to escape from America after they've molested children, and then you go, oh, we'll keep them safe here. And on top of that, you get to take our tax dollars. We can't even extradite our pedophiles. And you why are you saying that?
And isn't an ally reciprocal? Like, shouldn't it go both ways? Like, what do they do for us? I understand we fight their wars for them and we protect them and we give them weapons and we do everything they want. That's fine. They're surrounded by enemies for some reason. Nobody seems to like them. That's fine. What do they do for us? Ever. Anything. Ever. It's really...
No one can tell you.
No one can tell you. And then, of course, people are so emotionally invested in the idea of Israel. When you mention these things, they just repeat that trope. Well, they're our number one ally. It's like, I think you need to first understand the word "are," who "are" is, and secondly, understand the word ally, because ally is supposed to go both ways.
Let me go to a different conversation with you. Recently, when I watched some of your tweets, I don't know if you announced this or not. I don't know if you've joined AIPAC. I don't know if you are, if you are an advisor for them. Let me read some of these tweets. Muslims aren't the problem. The open borders and motherfuckers and the media attacking nationalism, pushing DEI, transgenderism, and destroying moral values are the problem. August 4th. If you don't put America first as a U.S. politician, you are committing treason. Supporting Israel is bad for America. Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal, and Israel is not our ally. We fought way too many wars for Israel, and we certainly don't need to give them any more money. July 25th. These idiots have ruined movies. Everything they put out is literally propaganda. And then all of a sudden, we got scripture here. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Is this recent, comments you're making about Israel a recent thing, or have you always had these beliefs?
It's more recent. I didn't really realize what a problem it was until recently, and then everybody was scared to say something about it. My brother told me, you can't say anything about it. They'll fucking kill you. Everybody basically said that I couldn't say anything about it. And actually now they're literally trying to kick me off the board of my company because of those tweets. Shit. Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of negative pushback, a lot of my Jewish friends, but I don't give a fuck. It's one of those things where I know that it's the right thing. And the fact that everybody else is scared to say it makes me, feel obligated to be vocal about it.
Why do you think it's the right thing?
Because I know that they're a fucking parasite. They provide the U.S. absolutely no value. They've done so many things that, would constitute, an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair, I can go on and on and on and on and on. But, I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, right before he died was, make AIPAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden this fucking guy's dead. And Jack Ruby, who was Jack Rubenstein, it's just and then you just, I don't know, man, I can't ignore all the shit that they've done. They sold their secrets. Netanyahu lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. We fought all these fucking wars. My friends have died over there. Like, you know, and I just look at what they provided us with, and it's fucking, it's not nothing. It's like a negative, you know, it's not, even if they just didn't do jack shit, that would be, you know, bad, but they've actually done things to hurt us over and over and over again. So like this whole thing of they're our greatest ally is just complete fucking bullshit. And, you know, we send them $100 billion, then they send AIPAC $100 million, and then they distribute it to our politicians, and every politician is a little fucking AIPAC handler walking around and telling them what to fucking say and how to vote. And it's just like, look, I'll donate like $100,000 to politicians, you know, and they call me up like, hey, you need anything? Like every week. I don't need shit. I fucking sit on my ass. I don't do anything. I don't care. I don't fucking break any laws. I don't need any favors. Like I just gave it to them because I didn't want to see any more fucking retard, you know, Democrats in there. So, you know, but that's 100,000. Like, what does 100 million buy you? How many fucking phone calls do those guys get? You know? And so, like, I just know how it works. And the system is broken. Like, these people get into office and they don't have very much money, and they get out of office with fucking tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not a fucking accident, right?
Is that an Israel thing, or is that anybody? Because China's doing the same thing.
China doesn't have they don't have an AIPAC. Like, Israel is the only one that has a fucking, like, a lobby in the U.S. fucking, you know, giving these politicians money.
Okay, no, every country, the big ones all have lobbyists. They all have lobbying that they're doing.
Not in the U.S. They're registered as foreign entities.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about, are you going to the dual citizenship part with Israel, you know, Israel?
That's another problem is a lot of our politicians have far more allegiance to Israel than they do the United States. I mean, that's a whole nother issue as well.
Do you know why they did the dual citizenship? Do you know the history behind why they did the dual citizenship?
What do you mean?
Like, so the whole concept of dual citizenship was because when Israel became a, you know, country again, they didn't want the people from here who wanted to go back to Israel that didn't have a motivation to go if they were going to lose their citizenship here. So that was the reason why they did it. It was kind of like, okay, you're your own country. We kind of need some of you guys to move over there to help the country out. Yeah, but I'm not going to go. Why are you not going to go? Am I going to lose my citizenship here? But you are. I mean, we don't do that. Every other country, I don't want to lose my citizenship. Well, okay, how about if we do this? How about if we allow you, just Israel, to go back to your country, you won't lose your citizenship? That was the arrangement at the beginning why they did it that way.
No, look, I get it. I have 3 citizenships. You know what I mean? I think it's okay. I think
what's the third one? I know Armenia, but what's the
St. Kitts.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have an issue with dual citizenship. My issue is when somebody is holding a U.S. office and they are putting a foreign nation's interest before America's interest, and they are favoring that other country. And so that to me is treason. Like when you are a U.S. government official, your motivation should be to do things in the best interest of the government that you are representing, not 100%. Some other fucking foreign country. And that's the problem.
Okay, so, but go through it. So what is the solution? Meaning, if Israel's the enemy, then if let's just say you don't do anything and everybody in the Middle East unites to take out Israel, do you think the Middle East is better without Israel? And do you think the world's a safer place without Israel?
100%. It's not even close.
Okay, tell me why. Why do you think?
Give me an argument otherwise. Please. But give me one argument why the world would be better off with Israel. Let's just start with that. One thing. Give me one thing.
Have you ever lived in the Middle East?
No.
I lived there for 10 and a half years. It's a very, it's not as like here. You can sit here, you can be an atheist, you can be an agnostic, I can be a Christian, he can be a Jew, he can be an LDS, Muslim, no problem. We can coexist here. You can do that in Israel. You can do that.
I mean, not really. They're operating apartheid right now. So everybody's not living equally.
Not at the level of Iran. Not at the level of what Iran is doing. I mean, in Iran, if you're thinking what Israel is doing out of control, do you know how much money Khamenei's family's made? Do you know how much money they've taken? They have 200.
I've never been to Iran, but I've been to Dubai, I've been to Saudi, like I've been to UAE. So like, and they're all Muslim. They seem to be operating fine.
I would say Iran's slightly different than. But go back to it. So okay, so you think the Middle East and the world would be a better place if Israel didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's committed, so many terrorist attacks. They're stealing land right now. They're operating apartheid. They're currently committing a genocide on Palestinians. Like, do you believe in the genocide they're committing?
I think they're fighting for themselves and they're defending themselves.
Do you think that's defense?
Well,
when 1,200 people died,
Yeah.
and of which the 1,200 you've killed and admitted that you've killed a lot during, your handle.
I will tell you this. The part I question where people who are Jewish can't stand when I say this, I don't know how you, Netanyahu, claim you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad, and you didn't know that on October 7th they're attacking
They knew about it. They didn't. They wanted it to happen, so they had a reason to take that. Yeah, they wanted a reason to take the land.
I totally get it.
And they killed their own citizens. And they claimed that all these people got raped. That was bullshit. They claimed beheaded babies. That was bullshit. Everything that they said was a fucking complete. Not only was it a lie, but they committed all those atrocities themselves to the Palestinians and been caught doing it. In fact, they just got caught gang raping Palestinians. How many babies have they killed? All the things that they accuse the Palestinians of, or Hamas of, or whatever, they are guilty of 100-fold themselves. And they've been doing that. Like, October 7th wasn't the start of this. Like, the start of this was Nakba. They've done so many different.
Disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not like, it's not like October 7th is like, it's all of a sudden they just came over there unsolicited and just killed people. Like, they have been killing Palestinians for years and years, operating two sets of justice. It's like they have the justice for the Palestinians and the justice for the Israelis. And if you read the Talmud, like, if you're not Jewish, you're basically not a human. You're like, like cattle. If a Jew is killed by, somebody that's not Jewish, then it's the death penalty. If a Jew kills somebody that's not a Jew, then, you can't kill them. It's not the death penalty. Like, they literally like segregate in their Bible.
They're very protective of themselves. I don't think anybody can debate that. I don't think it's a.
Well, it's not the problem isn't that they're protective of themselves. The problem comes when you think that you're better than other people and you think it's okay to lie to anybody that's not a Jew. You think it's okay to steal from people that are not a Jew. You have two sets of standards. The problem with that is it allows you to rationalize anything, right? And human beings are generally self-serving creatures. So if your fundamental religious belief system allows you to operate in such a way that you believe there isn't consequences to stealing from other people, killing other people, raping, kids that are under 9 years old, like if you think those things are okay, then, how are you going to operate? Because to me, like, my moral code keeps me on track.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's because you're saying it one-sided. You're not telling the other side of the story of what they're doing either. You're not saying what Hamas did. You're not saying what they did.
What did Hamas do?
I mean, from day one, when you see the rapes and the videos, we've all seen it. This isn't something
What rapes and videos?
But stay on this here if you want to continue with this.
But what rapes and videos?
But my concern when you're saying Israel's doing it, you're saying the other side isn't doing anything?
No, but I'm asking. There was no rapes during October 7th. They've shown no rapes from October 7th. They showed no beheaded babies. All that was bullshit.
I'll send you stuff. No, there's plenty of stories. It's not all of them.
The Israeli articles that I saw recently said that there was only 2 babies killed. One was shot by a bullet and the other one died in a hospital. There was no babies in ovens. There was no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
Okay, so go back to the part when you said they think they're better than you. You believe that Jews think they're better than everybody else.
It says it in their Bible.
Okay, but you believe they're better than everybody else. Okay.
I didn't say they're better than everybody else.
They think.
According to their scripture.
Okay, but what if...
And then if you look at how they operate, right, like they literally caught people raping Palestinian prisoners, and there was riots. But the riots weren't because they were raping the prisoners. The riots were because they felt like they had the right to rape the fucking prisoners. That's why they almost had a fucking civil war, because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. They felt like that was okay because they weren't Jewish. So, when you have a society that operates like that, you're going to have fucking problems. And they're not the fucking most moral army. That's all fucking bullshit. Everything that they say, it's just like almost like, listen, when somebody lies to me, like if you lie to me, I'm not probably going to trust you again. You lie to me a second time, I'm definitely not going to trust you. You lie to me a third time, and I let you lie to me the third time, I'm the fucking idiot. These motherfuckers have lied like 10,000 times. So, like, I don't believe anything they say anymore.
I come from a place of, I don't sit here expecting you to tell me 100% the truth. I don't sit here thinking, yeah, Dan's going to tell me 100% the truth with whatever he has in his life. I don't expect that from you because I don't expect people to walk on water. That's not my expectation. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to live it with my life, but you can't think that China's going to tell us the truth, or Iran tells us the truth, or U.S. tells everybody the truth, or you think any country is going to tell us 100% the truth. But
I don't know, man. I got a different moral code. Like in gambling,
It's not about you having a different
but in
moral
gambling
code.
and business, like with my friend group, like you lie one time, you welch on a debt, you do one
you're
thing.
talking friendship, though.
I'm just saying, my friends, people that I know, people that I do business with, people I gamble with, like
It's the same thing I have as well. It's the same thing most people have. There's a difference between on the personal side than on the countryside.
I'm convinced the future looks bright, and we want 1 million people to wear the Your Future Looks Bright. The USA hats, last time we had, it sold.
That was certainly a spicy interview in its entirety. That was a little spice just from that little clip. He does use the phrase, because I told you to be on the lookout for half, and then there was another word. He used the word phrase. Sorry. He used the phrase half retard to describe Kamala Harris. But that's not in that clip. You'd have to go to the entire interview. But I just wanted to close that circle because you guys deserve it. All right. So he mentioned something called the Lavon affair. You heard USS Liberty. You might have heard, like, if he mentioned King David Hotel, other instances of terrorism. But the Lavon affair is a 1950 terrorist bombing that Israel did in Egypt. So there are these, and it was, there's some British, because the British mandate used to extend over Egypt as well, because that's a Versailles thing. So there's a long history behind that. He also mentioned in there that Israel might have maybe had something to do with JFK's assassination. I saw a piece of footage this past week. This is JFK related, but it's not Israel related per se. It would be the lower level of how the deep state did it. Israel would be in the upper levels. So it's not in this story. But there's a clip that I found. It's called, if I could scroll down, because they got to put this, trigger warning, assassination of JFK. They got to give you the blue box, like, oh, there's nothing to see here, but you can still scroll down. This is a confession from prison of someone who claims to have shot JFK. And I was, as you should be, incredulous. I don't believe that. I think that's bullshit. But on the other side, I know I can't condemn it unless I actually watch that video and watch the interview, which I did this past week. So I was doing some work in the garage, doing some work around. I had a speaker. I'm listening to this interview, and I'm gauging it as to, does this make sense? Because if it doesn't match up to reality, I can discard it and move on with my time. I don't sit there and try to analyze his posture and all this other stuff. I'm listening to the words. If he's lying, he's using words to lie. If I analyze the words, I can understand. Here's what I could tell you. This guy is alive. He's still alive today. This video that you're about to see a little bit from is from 2003. I didn't understand until the second time I watched it that it's the dearly departed Jim Mars who did this interview. And he's in the footage, and Jim passed away a couple years ago, but I met him back in 2006, and he's a very interesting person. He knew a lot of things, and he was a big JFK researcher back in his day, so I can understand why he would want to get a camera in front of this guy. Now, who's this guy and how did he get found? Well, there was a lawyer that used to work on his case. The lawyer died suspiciously, and it's probably because he was working on the case. This guy was found because an FBI guy, probably an honest FBI guy who was working on the Kennedy assassination and saw how it was being covered up, gave the lawyer, the investigative researcher dude who passed away suspiciously, gave him this guy's name. And so it's the FBI saying, here's a guy, you should interview him. In the process of doing that research, that guy dies suspiciously. And then other people take up his work, and eventually they get a camera in front of this guy, and he talks you through the whole thing. So if you listen to the 2 hour and 47-minute, 54-second interview, there's going to be a couple things you should keep in mind. This man's been in prison for a long time. He doesn't have access to the internet. He's not a particular Kennedy assassination scholar. If he did not do the things he's describing to a great degree, am I saying he shot the guy, shot Kennedy in the head from the grassy knoll with a Remington Fireball 222? There's a small percentage chance, yes. Is there a chance that this guy that's in this video worked for the CIA, worked for the Chicago mob, worked directly under Charlie Nicoletti and Johnny Roselli and those type of guys, under Momo Giancana, under Tony Accardo, who was the mob boss at the time. 99.9% he did work for both those organizations because of the granular detail he's able to bring to any of these questions at any given time through the almost 3 hours of interview. He definitely worked amongst the people who killed Kennedy. All the people that he's talking about, they're in the Georgetown set. They worked with who's that guy from before? Tom. Help me out, Scott.
From what was it?
Braden, Tom Braden.
Oh yeah.
All right, so if we went back over here to Georgetown set, George, there's a lot of Georges in here. I have to type set. Georgetown set. I'm going to show it to you in a history blueprint. There's a Georgetown set. A whole bunch of the names that he's talking about are in this group of people, and specifically, they are people who were in Operation Mockingbird. They're in Operation Mongoose. They're in Operation 40. Let me just show you Op 40 so you know what we're talking about here, because it might not get to the part in this clip where he talks about all this stuff. But I want you to know, when he's talking about Operation 40, all the people he's talking about, and this is his handler. David Atlee Phillips is James Files' handler. I think his real name's James Sutton. David Atlee Phillips handled Lee Harvey Oswald. This guy in this video says he rolled around with Oswald and did all this stuff. So it's a very interesting story, but I don't think the gentleman in this film is doing it to become famous. I think he's doing it because at this point, no one's going to prosecute him for shooting JFK. The details that he has, I promise you, it will not be a waste of your time to consider this piece of evidence in its entirety. And even if it's not the whole story, you're getting a much, much, much more close look at how the on-the-ground operations of that day worked. And right above it, you would have CIA, nonprofit foundations, internationalist foundations, and ruling families behind it that are all very well documented. This is the part that's kind of been missing. They use the mob, yes, because the CIA and MI6 are going to use a proxy. He says that Hoover knew about this in August of 1963, that GCHQ had that information, right? That's British NSA before the NSA really even existed. So like, there's a lot of things in here that I'm like, I don't know how he would make that up. I don't know where he would get I don't know. Maybe somebody briefed him for 10 years on how to tell this story. Possible. If you have any evidence of that, I would love to see it. Otherwise, we're left with, here's documentary footage of James Files, or James Sutton, aka James Files, in 2003, shot by Jim Mars. And I'd never seen this footage prior to this week. I'm kind of embarrassed about that because I like to think of myself as having surveyed the landscape, and I've seen it all. I didn't see this. I don't think any of you have seen this. Let's go ahead and check out at least the first couple minutes so you have the setup and you know where to go find it.
when Joe West first originally contacted me here at Stateville Prison, I was on a visit. The counselor came in the visiting room where I was at and stated that she wanted me to come out and make a phone call. I told her, I said, no way. I'm here 365 days a year. I'm not leaving my visit to go make a phone call. I said, who's calling? She told me, someone from Texas named Joe West. I told him, I do not know the party. I said, tell them I'll call them on my time, not their time. I'm on a visit. Don't bother me when I'm on a visit. The next day, they got me out of my cell. They took me downstairs and got a phone call hooked up. I called Joe West to talk to him. I told him, you have 3 minutes to convince me why I should talk to you. As Joe started talking to me, I told him, I said, whoa, stop. I said, you're on a lot of touchy spots. I said, these phone calls are recorded. Every phone call going in and coming out is recorded. If you want to talk to me that bad, then I suggest you come and visit me. Joe West had me put him on his visiting list. He come up to visit me. He spent 2 days up here talking with me. The first day, I wouldn't even talk to him about the Kennedy situation. We got into sports, weather, generally about prison, local things till I got comfortable with him. The next day, after I thought it over all night, Joe West seemed like a pretty nice guy. I really liked Joe. He had a magnetism about him. The next day, we sat down, we got serious, and then we started talking. I sit in the visiting room with Joe. They gave us a pencil and paper. I sketched the entire Lily Plaza out for him without any maps, without any pictures, nothing present. And I explained to Joe at that time, because Joe wanted to know where was I at. And I said, I'm going to put an X on the paper to signify me, but this X is not in the correct spot. I said, when the time comes, then I will put the X where it is supposed to be.
What had you told him to know that that you were on Lily Plaza?
Pardon me?
What had you told him that Joe knew you were on Lily Plaza?
Oh, I asked him. He said that someone had informed him that I was there. He said he had a reliable source. And I didn't know for quite a while who that source was. It was quite some time later before I learned the fact that the FBI was aware of my presence as early as 1964. Because I never knew that anyone ever knew about me. But Zach Sheldon, from what I understand, and I'm only quoting this from hearsay, that Zach is the one that stated and gave me to Joe West the information on me, that I was in Dealey Plaza.
That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever actually confess to taking a shot to Joe West?
No, I never did.
I make a statement. I never.
Well, the whole thing is, like with Joe West died. He passed away, never knowing that I was one of 2 shooters there in Dealey Plaza that day. Joe West never knew I was on the grassy knoll.
Do you have any thoughts on his death? Do you think that was natural?
Joe West went in for heart surgery, and from what I was told and what I understood, that he had come through it fairly well, and he was on the road to recovery. But then I was informed there was complications with his medicine. He was allergic to it, or an allergy or something. He saw that it killed him. The medication killed him. A couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I heard through the grapevine, and I won't go into the party that brought this information to me, they said that someone had tampered with Joe's medication and he had received the wrong medication because they wanted to silence him.
That's what his wife thinks. Okay.
And why would they want to silence him?
We had I shouldn't say we, I would say Joe West had the case in court. He wanted to exhume John F. Kennedy's body. And that's what he was fighting for. And at this point, when I talked to Joe West, I explained to him that John F. Kennedy had been hit in the head with a mercury round, a special load. At this point, I explained to him he can use this in the courts to have the body exhumed because there would still be traces of mercury, because the traces of mercury do not disappear. They'll always be there. And so this is what Joe West wanted to go back with more evidence and use this to get Kennedy's body exhumed, to look for traces of mercury.
And the court had accepted his case?
The court had accepted his case. But with his death, the case died.
Do you feel like your memory is as good today as it was, say, 10 years ago?
No, I do not. It's not that good.
Make a statement.
My memory as of 10 years ago was a lot more alert than what it is now. It's not that I'm just getting old and senile, but it's the conditions of prison, the conditions that we live under. Our water here, when people come in, and I'm sure you was advised not to drink the water from here, to buy bottled water. But I've been drinking this water for the past 12 years with radium in it, so is every prisoner here. We wasn't aware of the water situation until Oliver Stone come along to make a movie here. And when he made his movie here, we see all these people from the movie company running around carrying bottles of water. Even the officers that worked here, they got suspicious. And that's when we started finding out this water's unhealthy.
Just as an aside, you know, sodium fluoride is what they put in even the city's water supply. That's what the Nazis put in their water supply in those concentration camps to keep everybody pacified.
Yeah. They keep us pretty well pacified, and they really kept us pacified since we went on about a 10-month lockdown, and they took the prison back and run it under their order now. And I mean, this place is really maximum control now. There's no movement here at all to speak of.
Did you actually meet with Oliver Stone?
I met Oliver Stone 3 times. Matter of fact, I have a paper that Joe West, not Joe West, but Bob Vernon had Oliver Stone sign. Now, Bob Vernon come in after the Joe West deal. Bob Vernon took over for Joe West. Bob Vernon met with Oliver Stone, and he had him sign an agreement where they wanted to get me on film, but I refused to do that. I met with Oliver Stone 3 times.
And you never told him your story?
No, I did not tell Oliver Stone my story. I refused to discuss it with him. And like I said, I've got a copy of this. I got Oliver Stone's signature. Bob Burnett is the only signature on it. It states what it's all about. The only thing missing is my signature, because I would never sign that paper for the agreement.
Why was that?
I didn't like the man.
Case closed. Well,
Case closed. And if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of the document.
Okay.
And it's got Oliver Stone's original signature on it. And it has Bob Burnett's signature on it.
Well, I've got a raft of questions, but I'll tell you what, let's just go back to, and just let's go in chronology. Just tell me your own account again. You understand what we're really doing here is because the interview you gave Bob Vernon is kind of tied up in all kinds of legal stuff, right?
Yes.
And to help you and Pam, we're redoing this thing so that we can put that aside and move on.
Okay.
So this is redundant, but let's move on. Go back to when you first learned that there was a plot to kill Kennedy, and then just bring us forward into how it all came about.
Excuse me. The first time that I knew about anything being planned on Kennedy, I'd heard a lot of rumors that nobody liked Kennedy. They wanted to kill Kennedy. They wanted to assassinate him. They wanted to do everything to the man.
Were you kind of upset with him yourself over Bay?
Oh, I was upset with him over the Bay of Pigs, but I never paid any attention to any of this at first because, you know, everybody talks. Somebody gets mad at somebody, and right away, and I'm going to take this guy out. I'm going to take that person out. Woo, 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 woo. You know, a lot of barking, junkyard dogs barking, you know. But I was sitting in the Harlow Grill that evening playing the pinball machine, not the flipper kind, the kind with numbers where you gamble on and you put about $10 in to play a game. And Charles Nicoletti walked in, a man that I did a lot of work with, a man that I respected. And he walked in the back room where I was at, says, "Jimmy, let's go." I said, "I'll be with you in a minute." He reached over and tilted the machine and said, "Let's go now." My reply was, "Yes, sir, Mr. Nicoletti." I knew he wasn't in no mood to wait and hang around. He said, "I want to talk to you." I went out, I got in this car, and we went for a ride. And we made it a basic habit not to sit around restaurants, talk, reels, discuss anything like that, because when other people hearing. And we went for a ride, and he told me, he says, "We're going to do a friend of yours." And I said, "Jesus, what the hell did he do now?" But I thought this was referring to one of my friends in town there. He had been robbing the pinball machines and the cigarette machines, and he had a $1,000 a day heroin habit. And he was an all-out and out junkie, and, you know, they'd beat him up several times and everything else and threatened him, but so far they'd never went as far as to kill him. Chuck laughed at me, and he says, "No," he says, "not him." He says, "I'm talking about President Kennedy, JFK. And I looked at him and I said, "What?" He says, "JFK. He says, "Your buddy." I said, "Well, he just busting, you know, giving me a hard time, but he knew JFK. He knew how much I disliked the man." As I looked at him and I laughed. I said, "Okay, fine with me. You get in arguments there." And at this point, I still kind of thought, you know, he was just joking with me. But then he got real serious about it. And then we started talking, and then he told me, he says, "What I'm going to want you to do," he says, "I'm going to look around." He says, "We'll search the area around the town here." He says, "You know everything pretty good." He says, "And see what before we're going to do it at, what kind of weapons we're going to need, and other things like that." He says, and he mentioned, he said he was going to bring Johnny Roselli in on it. Fine with me, and I don't care who we work with. You know, I like Johnny. I had no problems with him. And originally we'd planned to do it in the Chicago area, but certain people didn't like that idea. So then we put it off, and this is like 6 months before the assassination ever really took place.
But you were not supposed to be a shooter?
Oh, no, never. I was not a shooter. I was, let's put it this way. I would like, the gopher. I go for this, go for that, pick this up, pick that up, run around, drive him around. When Chuck went somewhere, I was always with him. And
did you ever get wind that the Secret Service might have found out about the plot in Chicago?
No, I didn't get no wind on that at all, no drip. I just knew that certain people high up in organized crime, they wasn't too happy about the idea of having something like that happen to that magnitude in their backyard.
Gotcha.
Because they figured Bobby would really be down there, and they already had their own little private wars going. And so we decided, well, we'd take it moving. So I had no idea it was going to Texas at that point. This come to me down the road.
About when was that?
Well, that day, I'm going to say probably 2.5, 3 months maybe before I ever made the trip to Texas that they were talking about it. Because they didn't know where he was going to go. They were looking for an area to go. But then they had heard that he possibly may take this trip to Texas, but there was nothing definite. And I didn't go to Texas until that had been confirmed. And they had several different locations. There was New Orleans, and I don't know, there's other places he was going to. But when it come down to it, I had been told there was places that they had planned to do it. Other people had been authorized, stuff like that. Just different rumors you hear. How much credibility to it, I cannot say. But when the time come, and we knew that it was going to be serious, and we were going to, Chuck was sending me to Texas, that's when I went down on Belmont Avenue, the old Valley place where they made the pinball machines. And I had a shed down there, place where we, back room. That was all owned by the outfit too, pinball machines. I kept a catch of weapons down there. We used to do a lot of work. And when I say we, I'm referring to a party named Wolfman, who is now deceased. But at that time, he was excellent, remodifying weapons, manufacturing loads, whatever come down to handguns, rifles. This guy was a professional at it. He could manufacture things in his basement like you wouldn't believe, from silencers on down the line. He did it all for him. So I went down there, got the stuff we needed, and we had the one car that he just bought, already had everything secured in. We had secret compartments in it. And every car that we had, even before the 63 Chevy, even in the 61 Ford that we had prior to that in the 62, we had compartments in the dash where you could reach up under it, open things up, put grenades in there, handguns, whatever we might need. Behind the back seat, we had gun racks in the cars. We had pull-off door panels that would snap off. You could put them back on. We had handguns and stuff in there, whatever you might need. But we always had a work car ready.
So what did Wolfman do for you?
Wolfman, when I contacted him after all this went down, and this is several years later, this is when I first met Joe West, and Joe West had come here, visited me, we talked, and he asked me, he said, do you think this party called Wolfman would talk to me? And Joe asked me what his real name was, and I told him, I said, I won't divulge that, but I will call him and talk to him. So I called him on the phone. And I told him, I said, I'm talking to Joe West from Texas, and he wanted to know who Joe was, and I explained all this to him, and I said, Joe would very much like to interview. I said, I did not give Joe West your name, but I told him that you was the one that manufactured the special round. You made 6 rounds for me to take to Texas, all mercury loaded. I said, he wants to talk to you very much. Will you talk with him? And he said, get back to me. He said, I'll let you know. He said, I want to check a few things. The following week, Wolfman was dead.
How did he die?
I believe he had a heart attack. I've been in contact with nobody that was affiliated with Wolfman since that date.
Tell me about these mercury loads. Can you describe them for just a layperson?
Well, it was a 22 round, and he took the tips out. He drilled them out. Then he inserted with an eyedropper, put mercury into the end of the round, and he resealed them with wax. This is to make them explode on impact.
Okay, so now you've got, and describe the car.
The car was a 63 Chevy 2-door Burgundy, Chevy Impala.
With the special compartments and stuff.
Oh, we had special, yeah, we had the special compartment, the dash. We had the back seats, you could take that off, pull the bottom part out, then you raise the back up, snap it off the little clamps, take that out. We had the springs removed in the, behind the seat there by it, and we had little racks welded in there so we could mount weapons in there.
Okay, so now you got your weapons, you got your loads, you got your car. How did it come together after that?
Well, just before I left, final instructions was, Chuck told me, he said, I want you to leave first thing in the morning. He says, and I don't want you driving at night. He said, I want you on the highway with a lot of traffic during daytime where nobody pays any attention to you.
Let's go back. Give me a date or approximate date.
I don't remember the approximate date, but I went down like a week before the assassination. Okay. I want to say I was in Dallas, in the Dallas area 5 days before the assassination took place.
And what was the purpose of that?
The purpose of that was for me to go to Dallas, look over the area, learn dead-end streets, railroad crossings, time for train crossings. They already knew the regular motorcade route that he would be taking, and they had already looked that over, and they wanted to see if there's any better places than a lot of people had already decided on. I'm not the one that chose Dealey Plaza, but I was told to look it over very close and look and see if I thought there's any other place better. And I did the whole area from the route they had all the way through. I had Lee Harvey Oswald with me.
All right, go back now. So about a week ahead of time, I think it was a Monday, as I recall.
Something, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah. But you left Chicago. Just start. You left Chicago, you went to...
No, I didn't leave on a Monday. I left on I left either Thursday morning or Friday. I don't remember which. I know I was in Mesquite, Texas, Saturday morning. Okay. Because that's when Lee Harvey Oswald showed up at the motel where I was at. I arrived there on a Friday. I'm pretty sure it was Friday when I arrived there.
Did you call anybody when you got to Dallas?
I made 2 telephone calls when I got there. I called Charles Nicoletti, told him that I was on the scene and where I was at in case he had to reach me. I turned around and made another phone call. I called David Atlee Phillips. I had a number to call. The call was put through to David Phillips, and he was notified where I was at, because I had not told him in advance that I was going to Dallas, Texas.
And why did you call David Atlee Phillips?
Because he always had to know where I was at, because he was my controller.
For?
CI purposes, special operations, or something that might be needed done.
And you were supposed to stay in contact with him?
We always stayed in contact. We had numbers to call.
What happened after that?
He said thank you, and let it go at that. We didn't have any great discussion on the phone. I told him where I was at, the location, and through David Atlee Phillips is the only way that Lee Harvey Oswald could have known where I was at. But I'd called no one else. I made 2 phone calls.
Where were you staying?
I was staying at the Lamplighter Inn right there in Mesquite, Texas.
And then the next thing you knew, Lee Harvey Oswald showed up.
The following morning, Lee Harvey Oswald was there. When he knocked on the door, I opened the door and I was shocked to see him, because I didn't think anybody knew where I was at except for the other 2 people.
Why is Phillips the only one who could have sent Lee Harvey Oswald?
Because Charles Nicoletti had never met Lee Harvey Oswald.
He didn't know him?
He did not know him.
You say you were shocked to see him, but did you know Lee Harvey Oswald?
I had known Lee Harvey Oswald prior to that, yes.
How'd you know him?
I knew him from earlier operation that we was on with David Phillips when I was running semi-automatic 45 caliber submachine guns down to Clinton, Louisiana. They were made, I think they were manufactured by Knoxville Arms. They were not the old Thompson. They looked like a Thompson submachine gun, but they were not Thompsons. They were only semi-automatic. And they were very cheaply made.
And how do you meet, did you meet Lee Harvey Oswald?
I met Lee Harvey Oswald through David Atlee Phillips. When I got down there, he introduced me to Lee.
Was it your understanding that Phillips was also Oswald's CIA contact?
I learned that when I was down there. That is the first time he introduced me to Lee Harvey Oswald. And he also instructed me that Lee could be trusted and that he was Lee's controller.
Made that as a statement.
He made it as a statement because I wanted to know who he was dealing with and who I was giving weapons to.
I need you to make a statement that I was introduced by Phillips, who was my CIA handler, and I was told that he was Oswald's.
We didn't call them handlers back then. We called them controllers.
Okay.
Okay. David Atlee Phillips, he introduced me to Lee Harvey Oswald. And upon doing this, he also explained to me that he was Lee Harvey Oswald's controller, the same as he was mine. That he was always in contact with Lee Harvey Oswald.
So that's how you know that's where the word came for Oswald to come meet you in Dallas.
So that, through common sense, tells me the only one that could have sent Lee Harvey Oswald to me was David Atlee Phillips. And when I opened the door and Oswald was there, I was kind of shocked to see him because I didn't know that he knew I was there. And so I asked Lee, I says, "What the hell are you doing here?" Because I was shocked, you know. He said, "I was advised to drop by and spend some time with you and see if I could help you out." I said, "Help me out?" He said, "Yes." He says, "Somebody wants me to show you the area." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Come on in." So he come on in, so we sat down and we talked, and I said, "I'll be with you in a few minutes." And I was young and cocky at that time, and I'd just come out of the shower and everything, and I was combing my hair, so I had a camera there, so I told Lee, "Hey, make a couple of pictures while I'm here in Texas." And so Oswald made a couple of pictures of me, and then he said, "Let me have the film, I get it developed." I said, No. I said, "I get the whole roll of film." So that was how I got a couple of pictures made that people have recently asked me about. But,
Was that, whose camera was it, yours or
my camera.
your camera?
Yeah. But he was going to take the film, turn him in, and get him developed. But I said no.
Didn't want to let that film go.
I do my own work.
How did he arrive at the motel?
He arrived driving Blue Falcon, Ford Falcon.
You remember what year model?
No, I don't. It wasn't brand new. It was a couple of years old.
So he could drive?
Yes, he could drive. When he met me in Clinton, Louisiana, he drove up in a, I want to say Chevrolet truck. It could have been a Ford. I want to say pickup. It was a pickup truck. Let me put it that way. It was an old pickup truck. And we put the weapons in the back end of it and pulled the tarp down over the weapons.
What color? Do you remember what color pickup?
I believe it was green. It was a real, I don't know, dirty, yucky green, whatever you want to call it. Darker green, like, you know. It hadn't been washed in a long time, and there's a lot of rust on it. That's about the best way to describe it.
So did you and Lee Oswald drive around Dallas, son?
We drove around Dallas. Lee Harvey Oswald and I, we drove around Dallas up to right before the assassination. I did not see Lee Harvey Oswald on the morning of the assassination. But prior to that, Lee Harvey Oswald had been with me every day. We drove around. He showed me different streets, different areas. He was the one that took me out to the place southeast of Mesquite there, next to a big junkyard. We went out there in the field. He said, ain't nobody going to bother you out here, you know, because I wanted to calibrate the scopes, but not only for the fireball, but for other weapons as well. And while I was out there firing weapons and ejecting shell casings, Lee was picking them up and holding them in his hand. But I didn't want to leave no casings or nothing behind, and I'm busy firing, so I just looked at Lee, grab them casings. And that's what he did. He picked them and he held on to them until we got ready to leave. So I calibrated my scope, set things up, put the stuff back in the car, and we got back in. We went riding around, and I wanted to know the railroad crossings. I wanted to wait and see what time trains come through. I want to know if there's any passengers, if there was freight trains. They stopped. The track's going to be blocked. The intersection's going to be blocked. Dead-end streets, construction work, where every intersection was at, where all the lights were at, how long the lights were. They stayed red. I wanted all these little details.
Did anybody show up or give you any static while you're out there sighting in those weapons?
No, nobody. No. When I was test firing the weapons, nobody at all even come out there, looked at me. And there wasn't any houses, nobody real close by. We're off the main highway there. And like I say, it was just, you know, nobody come around, nobody even cared.
No, I can remember back then we'd go out on Turtle Creek and shoot turtles, and cops, nobody showed up.
How much time were you two together during the day?
We was out there test firing. We were test firing weapons for approximately, I'm going to say 20, 30 minutes. But during the day, we probably spent anywhere from 5 hours, 6 hours together.
So all that time he could not have been working in the Texas Book Depository?
No. He worked in the book depository stores, what he told me. I was never in that place. But he had time off to come out and spend time with me, and then I would drop him off in the area, and he would go somewhere, and I guess that's where he went. I had never asked him where he went, what he done, who he saw.
So that must have been a cover job then.
Yeah. Okay, so it gets to be, say, Thursday before the assassination. How did it all come down?
That Thursday, I went on back to the motel. I dropped him off that afternoon, and I went on back out to the motel to get some rest. And the following morning, I'd gotten a message that I was supposed to call Leo at the, I think it was the Dallas Cabana. And I called over there and answered the phone to Leo because Mr. Nicoletti didn't want his name used. I knew he'd come in late. I didn't know when he come in. I didn't know how he got there. But when I come in, I was told to come over there and park, and that Johnny Roselli would come down. He wanted me to drive Johnny Roselli to Fort Worth. I pull up out front and waited. He come down a few minutes after I pulled up. I never went in the hotel, never asked for anybody. He come down and come outside because he knew I was en route. And I drove from there to Fort Worth, Texas with Johnny Roselli in the car.
So that was Mr. Nicoletti went with you?
No, Mr. Nicoletti did not go.
Just Roselli?
Just Johnny Roselli went with me to Fort Worth.
Did you know Johnny Roselli prior to that day?
I had met Johnny Roselli before. I'd met him in Florida, Miami.
Any jobs with him?
Never any jobs with him. I'd talk with him and around, but we never, we was probably involved in some of the same operations or things, but with the same people, but we never went out and did anything together.
Were you aware that Roselli was working with the government again in an anti-Castro?
Yes, I was well aware of that. He was.
Statement.
I was well aware that Johnny Roselli was involved in the government actions. He was like the license between CIA and organized crime, and he was heavily involved in the invasion of Cuba, Bay of Pigs, Chiano's Bait, whichever you prefer to call it. But he was also very tight with Frank Sturgis. Frank Sturgis headed up the SAO, which is a secret army organization, what this is all about. And they've had so many different code names for wanting to kill Castro, I couldn't even name half of them. But every time you turned around, somebody had a new operation going. But John...
I'm sorry, did you ever hear Mr. Roselli as called colonel, or did he have any military credentials?
I don't remember what the total name was.
Okay, again, that's the James Files interview by Jim Mars, 2003. There's a lot more to that, but I wanted to get into the time capsule, the substantiation of working with the mob and the CIA. I mean, he's not going to cover MI6, but he will mention Scotland communication intercepts, signals intercepts that came from GCHQ. That's later in the conversation. I want to take you over to the history blueprint real quick, because these things can be complex and they can be lost on you until you start to learn the grammar, the logic, the rhetoric of the situation. In this thought of JFK assassination, we have precursors. So there could be Operation Mongoose, the Cuban project. If you don't know about Operation Mongoose, then you're not going to understand the JFK assassination. If you don't understand Operation 40, you're not going to understand the JFK assassination. So these types of, like, these are covert assassination squads, right? And there's some pretty interesting literature and evidence that has yet to be shown to the public. Now, one of these pieces, I was trying to find it over here. It is a it's a January. Let me just type it in because I know the date. So I'm going to type in the date into the search box. January 22nd, 1963, Operation 40 in Mexico City. Now, this is very interesting because at one table in Mexico City, exactly 10 months before Kennedy's killed to the day, people from Operation 40, people from the Operation Mongoose, people from the CIA, people that are being named by James Files, Frank Sturgis, all these guys, Felix Rodriguez, Lee Harvey Oswald was in Mexico City. So there's a strong overlap. Now, if we went into, let's say, Lee Harvey Oswald, so I'm going to type in Oswald, and we'll see if this connection is in here. There's Oswald. He was in something called the Civil Air Patrol. Right here. Yeah, I do have it. I did learn about this at one point. So Civil Air Patrol is interesting because Civil Air Patrol also had a guy whose name wasn't Barry, but they call him Barry Seal, right? He was assassinated, by the way. Berryman Adler Seal. Adler Berryman Seal. That's his real name. You know who else was in Civil Air Patrol? James R. Bath, who was the Bush bin Laden money man, and W. Bush. George W. Bush. Walker. There you go. Walker Bush. Now the Civil Air Patrol. Oh, you know who else was in the Civil Air Patrol? David Ferry. You might have heard of him. And there's probably a couple other people, but I think you're starting to see there's a pattern there of Civil Air Patrol and overlap between people in the JFK assassination. Now, this is brought to fore in 1991 by Oliver Stone in the movie JFK. He does talk about the Civil Air Patrol, not to the extent of what I was just showing you, where it goes into Iran-Contra, but it was a thing back then. And some of these people who might have been flying drugs into the country back and forth might have also found use in the CIA's tool shed back in that day. So there's assassination teams, covert coups against Castro, all these things had been brewing. And then Kennedy said no to the Bay of Pigs. And then all the people that had been like practicing killing people got pissed at JFK. And that James Files layer is, look, let's say JFK and maybe even his family becomes a threat to the Anglo-American establishment. JFK's dad. So here's lesser known history about JFK. In 1938, at the age of 18 or 19, a young JFK takes a trip with his older brother Joe, who's later killed in Operation Aphrodite in 1943 at a drone that blows up, like planes as weapons. Planes used as weapons. Anyway, JFK's over there. His dad is ambassador to the court of St. James. So he's U.S. ambassador to Great Britain. And it's 1938. So what else is going on in 1938? MI6 in Great Britain start working with Meyer Lansky and the syndicate, and they commence Operation Underworld. Now, Joe Kennedy's not part of that. He's part of the Irish mafia. He's a former bootlegger gangster type dude. And he's over there. JFK gets to see how things work. He takes this whole tour of Europe to go back and do his thesis at Harvard. It's a really interesting little part that they leave out of everybody's description of JFK. So you got this buildup where JFK wrote a book called While England Slept about how Britain didn't fight back hard enough against the Germans or something like that, right? I have the book. It's coming tomorrow. I ordered it because I found out about it in this learning that I'm sharing with you. So at that point, he said it should be an Anglo-American relationship. So JFK, in his youth, before he becomes president, said America and the United States need to merge together. However, if he at some point came to the realization that maybe we shouldn't do that, that's definitely a reason for the empire to take him out. And if he was going against Israel in these ways, that's another reason, because the empire is partnered with the people that were creating the state of Israel. So there's an interesting overlap. Now, you're not going to see that in American history because they cut out the Anglo-Israeli relationship to his assassination or benefit from his assassination altogether. So you're left with the mob, the CIA, and the deep state that orders these things top down. So the CIA is like, we got to do this thing. Atlee Phillips is sent out to do it. He says, let's get some gangsters. The gangsters are like, let's get this other guy who's even more plausible denial. And they get layers of extrapolation or layers of insulation in between the people actually ordering the hit, benefiting from the hit. You know, like, for instance, the guy in the video that's telling you all this stuff, he did not change the parade route to go directly in front of Dealey Plaza. Secret Service, deep state had to make that change. So just like what we're about to look into, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, there's a lot of these things that are still going on today. And if you understand and can see clearly into the history, then you can also see clearly into today's machinations of mainstream media and purposeful gaslighting and creating a fog of war so that people cannot make timely decisions or choices until after it's too late, which is a major theme of today's political realm. Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.